quick editor's note before we begin. As always, this was recorded over 2 weeks ago at this point. I've basically been busy, I've been sick, and there was a small amount of laziness thrown in there, and that is a dodgy trio. So this video was recorded just before the tithed episode for Lady Custodes dropped, so we don't talk about it in this video. With that out of the way and that little bit of context done, here's myself and Jay chatting about whether Warhammer has a toxic fanbase problem. Hello and welcome back to another fabulous episode of PK's War Room. Today I'm joined again by Jay of Aeons of Battle. Hello, how are you doing today?
Doing really good.
People moaned last time that we had a slight delay, but it's an inevitability that there's a slight delay between us because we are currently like, what, 20,000 miles apart or something similar?
Yeah, just about.
Wait, let's start with our hobby outlook. Look, for people who are wondering from the thumbnail and title, we are going to talk about Chuds today. We're going to talk about right-wing pipelines. Are there Nazis in 40k? Is the fanbase generally toxic? Is it also the fault of people like myself and maybe you too, Jay? But either way, before we get into that, let's do the normal opening stuff. What have you been doing in the hobby?
I have been going hard into Age of Sigmar Spearhead. I got my Sylvanet Spearhead all painted up. I've got the better part of an Ogre Maw Tribe's Spearhead painted up, and I played them in a friendly tournament this weekend, and I came in third.
Oh, how many rounds?
Although I would argue it was 3 rounds. I still feel like I won, though, because I scored the most points of the day, and I went into the 3rd round with the only other undefeated player.
Sure, so you lost the finals, but end up with a better overall strength of schedule, which is a term used in Warhammer, right?
Yeah.
What did you play?
Ogre Maw Tribes.
What do they do in Spearhead? I haven't played with or against them in Spearhead or Full Fat AOS yet. What do they do?
Yeah, they're wicked simple in Spearhead. Most factions have like a gimmick or some sort of ability. The Ogres have none. We just have great data sheets, and then half of our Spearhead doesn't show up until turn 3.
Wait,
I started on the board with...
You have no faction benefit at all?
None.
What? Wait, surely there's got to be at least one line of text, like...
Our faction, like, rule is half of our Spearhead doesn't show up until turn 3. That's our ability. And so,
that sounds almost too simple, too basic, a little bit on the boring side, in my opinion, but...
I would agree, but the Ogre data sheets are so ogreish. It's because every single Ogre is like 4 wounds, control 2, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s. Like, they're just so good that I feel like we don't really miss a rule.
Sure.
We just are just big, strong lugs that just march. It's great.
So would you say it's a bit simplistic in how they play?
Absolutely. Utterly simple.
And then what did you play against? What did you beat and what did you lose to?
I lost against what's it called? Sons of Chaos, or what's like Chaos Space Marines in Age of Sigmar?
Slaves to Darkness.
Slaves to Darkness. I lost against Slaves to Darkness. They just had a wicked turn 1 alpha strike. He went first. Instant charged me with his entire army.
They have really good sheets
too. I only lost by 2 points.
Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights are really good.
Really good. Yeah. I only lost by 2 points though.
Okay.
And then I also played against Soulblight Gravelords. Or no, it's not Soulblight Gravelords. The nastier Soulblight Gravelords.
The Grand Delusion. What are they called? The ghouls. What are they called?
Courts.
That's it.
The Flesh Eater Courts.
That's
it. And then my first game was against Seraphon.
Sure. Okay. And you lost to the slaves.
The slaves.
Yeah. Okay. What got you into Spearhead? Was it our conversation before where I was like, you need to play Spearhead?
A little bit.
Yes!
Because I was excited for Age of Sigmar, and so I was working on my Sylvaneth. And then when Spearhead came out, and I had Spearhead because I bought the Scaventide box, and I was like, well, let's just try out Spearhead. And then we tried it out, and we're like, this is wicked fun.
Yeah.
And literally, we were all sitting in the couches in my basement, like, looking at, like, the Games Workshop web store to see, like, which ones we want. And then we drove to the game store, bought them all, brought them back, and then, like, a week later, we had them all built, and we were just had, like, we've been having, like, mini tournaments in my basement every weekend.
Having a game store that has everything in stock must be nice.
Yeah, well, we have a couple near me.
I went to 3 different stores today looking for Pariah Nexus. This is not the store's fault, to be fair. This is GW's fault, right? No Pariah Nexus mission deck in any of those 3 stores, in the Toy Master or either of my local game stores. So I'm going to a Warhammer tournament this weekend, and I still don't own the mission pack, and it's been like, 2 months now? So I'm doing it all via OTC battles and similar, but...
I also don't have a card deck. In the American Warhammer.com, they came back in stock, so I bought one. And it better ship like today.
Well, have you got another
the Pariah Nexus cards. I just need them because like to do pickup games and stuff.
Sure,
I've been mooching off of other people who were quicker on the pre-order or like or just paid an absorbent price on eBay to get the cards.
I think the cards make things a lot better. I love shuffling them, letting my opponent cut them, revealing them. I think it just is better. But for people who are watching this and are in the same boat, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this as well, but ITC Battles, the app, when you set up your game, you can randomize objectives on there, so you don't actually need the deck to play. I just think it's a good play aid. So at the moment, I'm fully on ITC Battles, just random. But I'm playing in a 40k tournament this weekend, and I'm taking fixed objectives, I think, like every round. I'm taking be in their deployment and scan their deployment, and then I'm teleporting Beasts of Nurgle into their deployment. I've got 3 of them. I'll show one to the camera now. This is the Cromlech Plague Toad. Yeah, look at that sexy boy. Anyway, teleporting them into the battle and just like scanning. So my plan is to try and score the most amount of points while not playing any interactive Warhammer, which is not, it's not how I like to play, but it's kind of how demons play right now. But I've got a Scarbrand. We're going into what I'm doing now. I'm basing this guy tonight. Scarbrand, Bloodthirster, Rotagus, Great and Clean One, and then tons of Plague Bearers. And I'm just like, and Demon's got a patch in the last Ministorum data slate or whatever it's called. So now you can teleport within 6 of any greater demon. So you can rapid ingress a Bloodthirster, run it up behind your enemy. Then you teleport Scarbrand within 6 of that and outside of 6 of them. Then you can teleport your Bloodletters within 6 of Scarbrand outside of 6 of them. And suddenly you've got 6-inch charges for Scarbrand and Bloodthirster. And oh, it's so good. It's so good. So that's my weekend plan, is playing the All-Stars event for Mikey's with demons. And all my models got delayed by the public holidays in the UK. So this morning I woke up with still 21 models unaccounted for, but they all arrived today. I've based, can we see on the camera? I've based 30 Plague Bearers today.
Hell yeah.
And painted them up. So, and now the interesting things which can segue into our next bit, I guess, is that, actually we're going to come back to AOS in a moment as well before we really get on to Chuds, okay? But I'm doing all this demon stuff, and I'm actually getting really into it. I love how they play at the moment. I've always liked my demons. I love greater demons and stuff. And the roadmaps showed up at whatever convention it was this weekend. And the roadmaps nowhere have any mention, once again, of anything to do with Chaos Demons. And I'm getting really fucking nervous, Jay. Because I think they might just squat them. I have a feeling there's a rumor that Chaos Demons don't get a book this edition. And there's been no mention of World Eaters, Thousand Suns. Although Thousand Suns are on the roadmap that they showed before this. So I'm wondering if we end up getting like monogod books, or they just squat the demons from 40k entirely, and I am scared.
Interesting. Okay, hold on, I'm gonna take a shot of my paint water real quick.
That's like, you can drink while I'm talking, by the way. I do it when you're talking. Like, it's just part of the natural flow in things. But I will cut this bit. I'll leave it in. No, I'll cut this bit.
It might be funny to see me do the the paint water. It's not paint water. This is clean distilled water from
a tattoo water thing.
Yeah, from a tattoo bottle. I have not heard that rumor. I feel like I would be surprised. I don't know that much about demons. I do know that the current like Comet Patrol is just Khorne, but it's called Chaos Demons.
Yes.
Comet Patrol. Yeah, that would be surprising. I know when the Codex was coming out and they weren't going to get the Emperor's Children, people were like, oh, here we go, Emperor's Children Codex. And then it didn't happen, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Or if it does, maybe later on.
If not, that's a when, not an if, though, right? Like, Emperor's Children will happen. And I'm wondering, once they've slammed in the 4th god, that we then go to the AOS model, which is, for those at home who don't know, mixed demons was taken out of Age of Sigmar when they last got a book in 3rd edition. So it used to be you could just mix all your demons up, and they were like, no more. Each of the demons are now split to each god. So you have the Maggotkin of Nurgle, which are both the mortal followers and the demonic followers of Nurgle. They have the Head Knights of Slaanesh, and so on and so on. So I'm wondering, once you get the 4th specialist CSM thing, that they will then go, haha, you can only take demons of the god with those things, or 15% splash of another one, or something like that. Which I wouldn't hate. I'd much prefer that to them just removing the data sheets for all this stuff that I have, because that would piss me off a lot.
I would be pretty shocked. I could see them maybe do it, but I think Games Workshop, like, they've been squatting stuff recently, but only like little bits. Like Blood Angels, you can't take the Flesh Tearers guy anymore.
Or this beautiful model.
Oh, the Dreadnought?
My beloved. My fucking beloved Librarian Dread. I've magnetized wings that go on the back of him. I love him.
Yeah, but I think the culling of the current squatty old range is just kind of leaving the door open for, years down the line, or maybe even editions down the line, fully fleshing out other things.
Sure.
Because,
So
they can't do Blood Angels again for at least the next few editions of Warhammer. So I could see them maybe doing a little Flesh Terrors release or a...
So Flesh Terrors, absolutely. They probably could. Don't remind me that that's it for Blood Angels now, because I think the Death Company kit sucks. I think the Death Company Dread upgrade is boring. I think the Sanguinary Guard is probably the... I've never been so disappointed by a model release from GW in my life, mainly because of my love of these golden boys. There's like 30 of them on a shelf in front of me. I'm just going to rebase them and play the old ones. I hate the new ones. So it makes me very sad.
No, I get that. Yeah. But I was just using that as an example of I don't see them squatting the Chaos Demons, because then if they don't squat the Chaos Demons, then they get to have a Slanesh release, a Nurgle release, a Tzeentch release, a Khorne release somewhere down the line.
Sure, it's more stuff to sell. But okay, so the counterpoint would be Beasts of Chaos. They're currently in AOS, but they aren't for much longer. They disappear in is it September? Is it coming out? It's sometime soon, right? They've announced that certain things are still in AOS, but they won't be forever. I think it's going to be January, actually. So Beasts of Chaos are gone, right? On top of that, look at what's happened to Deathwatch. People's entire collections haven't gone, but they've been mangled in how they can play them now. It's all just become normal Marine stuff. So they just seem a bit squat happy. And Marines you can't take the example from Firstborn Marines, because a lot of that shit needs to go. Let's say needs to go. That's not true. I think it should stay. But it's such a bloated book. They have to do something if they want to keep releasing shit.
Yeah,
right? Absolutely. But I do get this feeling that Demons... I heard the rumor 3 months ago, and I was like, it can't be true. And then with everything that's happened, I'm like, oh shit, is it true? But I guess they didn't roll Grey Knights into Imperial Agents, and Grey Knights are still there. Grey Knights can get their own book. And the Grey Knights' big foil, the big nemesis, is Demons, right? So it'd be weird if Demons completely went. So I do think we're going to see a fold in to the monogod mortal plus demon follower thing like we have in AOS, which... I'd be okay with. Would it inspire you to actually collect any of them, or?
No, I would definitely be a mono god builder. I've had this idea kicking around in my head of doing a Slaneshi cult Chaos Space Marine army with tons of 500 points demon allies. I think that's what you're allowed to ally in, right?
Yeah.
And so I would use all the Necromunda kits, because I would use the detachment that's all about cultists, and I would use the Necromunda Escher gangers to make my cultists, and then have some demonette bits sprinkled in, and then I have a few squads of demonettes too, and it just build a purely fluffy list.
Yeah, and I think if they did do the monogod stuff, it would make it more fluffy. It'd make it more flavorful. Because at the moment, if you're playing CSM, you can only splash in the god that is attached to you, unless you're no, that's not true. If you're playing as Death Guard, World Eaters, or Thousand Suns, you can only splash in the god that you're attached to. If you're playing Emperor's Children, technically you can still splash in everything else because they haven't got their own thing yet, maybe. I could be wrong on that.
It might say it on their pathetic detachment.
Yeah, but it makes more flavorful stuff. So I hope that's what they do, and we don't just see a load of that stuff go to AOS only. Which and another reason there's that in the wins for me is that when they launched a load of new mini Keeper of Secrets last AOS edition, they released the Talons of Slanesh and the Claws of Slanesh, the mini Keepers. Hang on, I'll show you. I'll show you all. So the mini Keepers are like this. They're on smaller bases and they're beautiful. So these came out and I saw them announced oh, they're gorgeous. I need them. And then they released with only AOS rules. And I was like, that's fucking weird. Because they don't do that for the other Greater Demons, right? Greater Demons get both sets of rules. I was like, that's just really strange. And then fast forward a year and a half or whatever it is. And I'm like, is this part of the... We don't want to have models play in both game systems. That's the bit that scares me about Demons, because they're across both game systems, right?
It could be.
Yeah, so that's what I'm scared of. That's what Vince is scared of today. Have you played any full fat AOS?
No, I have not played any full fat 10th edition.
4th edition. You're getting your...
Or 4th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been having too much fun with Spearhead, though. I just want to keep playing Spearhead games.
I'm about to launch a Spearhead mini league on my Discord server, playing on TTS, where... Because you can rock up, and it takes you an hour, and you can rock up and just pick on the table, you can pick out any of the spearheads out of the bags, just have them available. It's so good. But I did a 3-rounder AOS event. This is the last bit of hobbying, a couple of weeks ago. I played Skaven, and I went 1 and 2. No, did I go 1 and 2? Yeah, I beat Lizardmen. I got smashed by Soulblight, because they're really good. And I got smashed by Gargants in a way where, as a noob, I couldn't understand what I could have done differently. Gargants just destroyed me. Like, it wasn't even close. They didn't take a double turn because they felt bad, because I looked so demoralized. But if they took a double turn, they would have just tabled me.
Yeah. One last thing about like a Spearhead. So I've played probably like 12 games of Spearhead so far. How many have you played?
It's probably 12 to 15-ish. Maybe only 2 in physical, or the rest on TTS.
Interesting, yeah, because I'm finding it's pretty good on the balance, but I am finding like Soulblight Gravelord tend to be pretty darn good, and it seems like Night Haunts and Flesh Eater Court tend to be a little bit weak sauce.
Which is super interesting, because Night Haunts are like the fundamentally broken as fuck thing in AOS 4. They are like several degrees better than everything else in the game, and really need patching down. So that's super interesting. I haven't played against Night Haunts in Spearhead. I haven't played against Night Haunts at all, so like I'm talking from secondhand experience of other people. Soulblights, I think I played against them as was it the first thing I played against? It's weird looking back to my first couple of Spearhead games, so I had no idea what was going on or what anything was. Do you know what I mean? Do you look back at your early 40k games where you're like, I didn't know what anything was. I was too busy trying to figure out what I was doing, let alone what my opponent was doing, right? But yeah, so my AOS event was really fun, but I got smashed, and I'm back to the drawing board, and now I'm petting up Soulblights, so I can take 10 Blood Knights and a Vampire Dragon and hopefully be good enough. So yeah, okay, so we've done the whole catching up with what we're doing and things like that. Oh, my last question to you before we really move on, because I didn't watch your video on it, and I could have done, but I didn't, because I haven't got around to it. How did your 40k tournament go last month?
Oh yeah, I lost all of my games, but I scored in the 50s every game.
Okay.
So pretty happy with that. I took no vehicles because I had almost no practice with vehicles.
Sure.
So I thought my opponents would just be able to take them away from me. So I brought spam infantry.
Sure.
Assault Centurions, which is one of my most, like, it's a super fun model to run. Not particularly good. But
they're really cool, though.
I did okay because they could wipe, 2 or 3 units a turn, and I'm fine because I brought 16.
So, I saw you had Assault Centurions when I logged in. I did open the video and then just didn't get to watch it. I saw the table in front of you and I saw Assault Centurions. I thought to myself, is this just like Jay's collection, or is this what he took to the event? And then I never got to finish it. So it's so funny that you bring them up, because because at one point they were good. Assault Centurions were good. Maybe at the beginning of 10th, because you could advance and charge. No,
yeah,
they were good at some point.
Centurions have always kind of been up and down. They're kind of bad right now. They got a good stat line, but they're costed probably about right, which is probably too high for what they can do.
Have you booked another event? Have you got another one planned?
No. Yeah, there's another RT, I think, in a couple of weeks.
Okay. So if you want to, again, no obligation, but we should play on TTS.
Absolutely, we should play.
Yeah, okay, cool.
For sure.
Right, with that out of the way, everybody, we're going to talk today about whether or not the overall wide question is, does 40k have a toxic fan base or a toxic fan base problem? That's kind of the basic gist of it. And for the record, this is the thing that we finished the last episode where we talked about what was the last episode on? What do we do?
We jumped all over the place.
Fuck.
I barely remember. I watched it when you published it too. I have no idea.
Whatever it was, people enjoyed it. But I remember we got off and we were like, that was pretty good. I know some people moaned about the gap. And then we got off recording and you said to me, oh, I really wanted to talk about the female Custodes thing. And I was like, why didn't you mention it? So you can jump in there then. You wanted to talk about that last time. So what is it you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, going back to your thesis, is the Warhammer community toxic, or does it have a disproportionate number of toxic fans? I would say yes, but I would preface that by because I think I have a little bit of a different definition of a toxic fan, and I think I have almost a solution to this whole problem, or not a solution, but I think I've gotten to the depths of what is a toxic fan, or why everything just feels so different now, and I think it is. Well, maybe I'll save that for the very end. Let's go through everything about what we're actually talking about.
If it naturally comes up, say, no, sorry, come on. Let's hear your thesis. Let's hear your theory, and then we can unpack it via the talking points that we've got.
Yeah, I think it's the suspension of disbelief when you're experiencing these fantasy worlds is kind of broken. I think it's really hard to just quietly enjoy these things anymore. Because I think I've watched this happen with Star Wars, Nobody likes the new Star Wars movies because they're not that good. But the old ones weren't that good either. They're not the originals, but the middle ones. And like, but the way you could experience those was you can rewatch the movies or you can read like the books and the comics and play the video games. But now, like, you see Daisy Ridley talk on Stephen Colbert, and you see Luke Skywalker, who's Mark Hamill, by the way, badmouth the movie to like Conan O'Brien, and you see like people tweeting the Disney stock price, and it sucks you out of that fantasy world so easily. And so I think people are like, a little bit of the magic's gone, and I think a little bit of the magic is gone because it's hard to just focus on the fantasy and the escapism of these things anymore. Yeah, well, I think it's hard to focus on these fantasy worlds. And so I think a lot of the like anger when people say like, oh, Games Workshop doesn't have any respect for the lore, everything's changed now, it should go back to the way it was. I don't think that Warhammer has changed that much. I think just the way we interact and the way we're kind of forced to interact with it has changed.
Okay.
And I think Henry Cavill is the poster boy for the breaking of the immersion of Warhammer.
So do you think it's not necessarily even just like the seeing the stars of your favorite stuff? Because the Star Wars thing is definitely relevant. I feel like I don't want to even talk about Star Wars online. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I fucking hate the conversations around Star Wars online because they're normally
you can't do it.
Like super like over the top opinions about stuff and people being really unchill and do you think that's more not just the stars themselves talking about things, which is definitely part of it, but beyond that, do you think it's the way we engage with properties? Do you think it's like a social media element that we're constantly
100%.
online, we're constantly able to access information about it at all times, we can scroll Reddit on our phones instead of being on the toilet now and reading the booklet to a video game like when you're a kid, you now scroll the subreddit where you get to hear the opinions of other people on the video game you're trying to think about while taking a shit. Do you think that's it? Do you think the modern age has polluted our interaction with our favorite fandoms?
100%. And I think for a lot of people, like things like female Custodes and that just it gives them something to point at for how much less fun it is to them.
Sure.
But I think the actual crux of the problem is that immersion is broken and you have to work harder to get back to that place, as opposed to like, well, if Games Workshop just retcons female Space Marines away or female Custodes away, would that actually bring back the fun of Warhammer, or would they have to dig a little deeper? I think they'd have to dig a little deeper.
I think there's also beyond...
I'm like diagnosing them.
Beyond that, I think it's also people growing older. So I see this in a bit of discourse around video games as people saying in like short form TikTok content normally, like, my enjoyment of video games has died off. Why is that? And they theorize, is it their age? Is it video games have gotten worse? And so on and so on and so on. I don't believe modern video games are worse than older video games. That's just not true. Like, that's not true in the slightest. There is an element of AAA video games engaging with practices that are fucking tiring, like microtransactions. Everything's got to be a fucking open world. I saw someone moaning that Space Marine 2 might not be open world or whatever. I was like, fuck off. I don't want hay bales and towers to climb. I'm up for like a cinematic linear experience. But I think there's a bit of that too, is that it's not that the modern version of the thing you like is worse than it was, it's that you as a person have changed, either in the way you interact with said thing through social media, online content and similar, or through the fact that you're old, you're tired, you've got wrinkles under your eyes, you can't stay up, you've probably not looked after your body. Like, nerds are really bad at just like being in bad shape. You've got kids now, you've got adult responsibilities and a job. All these other things also factor in. The world around us is it's on fire. Like, America's reality is fracturing. The planet's getting hotter. Like, fucking, there's gonna be wars over water in the next 15 years. All those things add extra stress on that when you don't get to enjoy the thing that's meant to be enjoyable. Maybe it's not the thing getting worse. Maybe it's you getting worse. Kinda.
Yeah, it's hard to go to that like fantasy daydream of like, well, I wonder what Kosero Khan is up to in the warp chasing down Dark Eldar when you have to pay your taxes.
Sure, exactly. But on the sort of the Khan then, here's an example of this then. So you want to like escape away and think about Khan, and you put in an audiobook from the Black Library. Let's say one of my favorite ones by them, Thousand Suns. And then the narrator, a white man, does some horrible Asian accent for the White Scars, and I'm just like, whoa, just don't do that. But I don't know, it's a different time back in 2010 or whatever, and it was recorded or whatever. Like, it's okay to criticize things that you think have aged poorly or could be done better. And Warhammer's got shit tons of this, right? Warhammer has moved away from the Dark Angels being Native American coded. It's moved away from, it's added a woman to the Custodes. It does these things that do represent modern trends or progressive trends. And that's when these people who are perhaps dissatisfied with other parts of their lives are like, God damn it, Warhammer's gone woke because they won't give me horrible caricatures of ethnic minorities. And you're like, maybe that's for the better. So whilst I do agree with you, people engage in a different way because of content creators like you and me or Reddit or Twitter or whatever, I do not think that's an excuse for the way people lose their fucking minds when a woman is introduced into like the Custodes or whatever. So I think there's still an element of like, why does Warhammer have that reaction more so than say Magic the Gathering does, which is obviously my the big world that I'm from, right? Why does Warhammer seem to be worse in that regard? Or do you even think it's worse? That's a good question. Before I say do you think so?
I would love to know like your thoughts on the Magic the Gathering if they don't have the same problems. Because I have like one piece of evidence or data that I can go pull from, which is I made a video called like making female Space Marines. And I kit bashed a squad of Death Watch Marines to be ladies. And throughout the video, I also went through like some of the normal talking points and like some of the reasons why for and against. Like, does the lore really say no lady Space Marines? Not really. And like, there's a quote from Malcador the Sigillite where he was going to make the Primarchs women. And I was really proud of that video. But I knew it would generate some like vitriol from the comments, and it absolutely did. Every time we do a video like that, we lose a couple hundred subscribers, and we get many hundreds more comments than average. And frustratingly, nobody actually looks at the points I made in the video. They just say, no, all your arguments are invalid. Female Space Marines are not a thing. They can't ever be a thing. They shouldn't ever be a thing. Unsubscribe. Is like usually what people say. And so I always wonder like where does that take come from, or where like
I guess battle lines are drawn really harshly, I guess, is one of the big problems, right? Like you want to so to jump off that point as well, the one video that got me a death threat and called me non-white on 4chan, this is the thing that happened, was my video about female Space Marines. It's the most hate I've ever gotten for a video, is my video about female Space Marines. When I basically said, I don't fucking care, who cares, it's not important to me. Especially if it's like a non-official thing of letting people like model their own stuff. And that was the most hate I've ever got for a video. Like hateful comments, an emailed threat saying like I should just fuck off and die, and then some guy on 4chan saying I'm some brown social media activist trying to damage the last bastion of white male gaming, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you on about? Anyway, so yes, I've had that same experience, and I think the battle lines are drawn so harshly that no one wants to really converse in the middle. Like I'm doing it a bit now. I'm referring to all these people as chuds. I do appreciate that I am being a little bit antagonistic there, right? Like my female Space Marine video was a bit too, if I can go back and redo it again, I would have done it in a much more, can we have a conversation about this? Maybe I'm a beardy white man. Maybe I can open this conversation with you, where like, you know, someone who looks more like an SJW in their conventional sense may not be able to. But I was very much like, you're being a dick if you don't like, and I should have done that. But so I'm doing it, but they also do it, right? They're not listening to any of the pros and cons that you're discussing in your video. They have seen the thumb and title, which is a common problem on YouTube in general, not just from this sphere. I had it in a Magic video yesterday. And they just are like, fuck you, you're wrong. And then like, there's just no nuance in the middle, but then for some things, it's hard to really even allow that nuance to exist. If it's people just saying, actually, I think inclusivity is bad. And you're like, oh, well, that's a really hard point to talk about the middle grey area for, because that's kind of a shit stance to start from, you know? So, do you regret losing those followers for that video?
No.
Why not? Why not?
That's happened to us a few. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything for the channel. Like it didn't hurt the channel at all. It's happened a few more times for spicier topics. I had more fun making that video than any worry about losing the subscribers.
Sure. But not from a business perspective though. Sorry, but do you regret losing those people as part of your audience? Like those are human beings that you may have been able to sway if you'd approached it slightly differently, perhaps. Not even sway, but see your perspective.
What kind of upsets me a little bit is like going back to like my thesis of like I do think it is harder to engage in a fun way with these like companies or these universes. Like I do hope that everyone is having as much fun as me. And based on some of these comments, some of these reactions, it seems like they're not.
Yes.
And that's kind of sad.
Yeah. Fuck. Okay. So here's a telling part about me. You say this, so like I want people to enjoy it as well. I want people to be excited about magic sets that I'm excited about. I want people to be excited about playing or painting Warhammer like I am. That's what I really want to do. But I also do enjoy engaging with the two topics on as a commentator and a critic, I guess, right? But the problem is, so we talked about this before we turn the cameras on. A lot of my videos that are even relatively positive will come from a negative angle in terms of packaging, as I call it. So thumbnails and titles. Like, people will not click a video where I say Battle for Baldur's Gate is the best magic set ever. But if I say they made this one mistake or some stupid shit like that, it's much more likely to get people in the door. And then if I can be charismatic and stuff, I can get them to stick around and hear the point. It's just a horrible reality of like the social media age and the YouTube that we live in. And also the hole I've dug myself by being in this situation for a long time. The problem is that does foster some people who want the negativity that's in that thumbnail and title. And sometimes they don't get what they want. I've clickbaited them in some ways. That's the truth of the matter. Yeah. So I will get people who will just come in and they will comment religiously, magic is dying, as an example. And I'm like, why have you clicked onto like the 5th magic video in 2 weeks to just comment magic is dying? Is it like, do you wish it wasn't? Are you happy that it is? Like, what the fuck is going on in that circumstance? And it's that weird thing of like, I want those people to enjoy Magic or Warhammer as well. They clearly aren't. And I feel sad. I feel like I'm almost making the issue worse by giving them that little bit of like the negative jumping diving board for them to be like, fuck this game. I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, I think it's a certain group of people finding the fun where they can. Like they're not having as much fun in the fantasy land of 40K, but they're having a lot of fun in the controversy comment section every single time. Because we see like these massive upticks whenever a Warhammer controversy happens. Even the milder ones get seemingly completely blown out of proportion. And I think there's a bunch of people who are genuinely like, lizards are taking over the world. We all must man the gates. But then I think there's a larger majority of people who just like to hear people complain and be upset and just use it as like entertainment.
I think there's a truth to that. So like there's this question that underlies the toxic fanbase thing of like, how many actual Nazis are there in the Warhammer space? Because Warhammer's got a bad rep for it. So for example, to go to a talking point that we labeled ahead of time, because we've prepped for this more so than I normally do for most episodes. There was a statement put out by GW about how Warhammer is for everyone except for the Nazis, essentially, right? That was their wording, right? They said something at the title, it was like, the Imperium of Man is fueled by hate and Warhammer is not, and it ended with, you will not be missed if you're a Nazi. And that was prompted by, I think it was a Swedish tournament, maybe a Spanish tournament, where someone rocked up in like a neo-Nazi like flag on their jacket or t-shirt, and the first round opponent refused to play against them in this Warhammer tournament. And then what happened was, because they conceded essentially by refusing, the TO gave the neo-Nazi, wearing actual neo-Nazi regalia, like a 70-point win or whatever. And that went onto Reddit and got viral, and I was like, what the fuck? And the TO was like, I didn't really know what to do or whatever. And that prompted GW to make this statement. So there are some in the community. So that's the first point, is like, why is that? But secondly, like, how many of them are there? Like you said, not everyone is like people, lizard people, weird racism shit. They're just like people who might be angry or dissatisfied in some way. And they're looking for an out to that, even an entertainment out to that of like, fuck this corporation. Which, I mean, to be fair, of all the people to say fuck you to, like saying fuck you to Games Workshop, Wizards of the Coast is a healthy one compared to like, you know, other things. But they're looking for that. And in some ways, I guess, like, my controversial titles might be that, or they might miss me and land in, like, The Quartering, Sarkon of Akkad, or Archcast, like, all of those shithead, like, right-wing nonsense talkers who are telling them, the reason you're upset is diversity and inclusion in video games. And they're like, yeah, fuck diversity and inclusion. And they're not really invested in this. It's just their scapegoat. It's just their place to put their ire, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, like I almost remember, like I think with my thesis statement and like what I want to say, I want to help some people back onto the fun side of Warhammer. Because like I remember in college, I was crazy into movie review YouTubers like Jeremy Johns, Red Letter Media, Chris Stuckman, and I remember I watched this movie Chappie. I forget when that came out, 2015, 16.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely little cyberpunk fairy tale movie. And I'm like, hell yeah, this is my jam. And then I go online to watch my, internet friends talk about the movie, and everybody hated it universally. Yeah. Absolutely panned. And I just remember feeling like so outside of it all of a sudden.
I think, to do a little tangent, I don't think Chappie's a great movie, but I think the ire that it got was because Blomkamp was expected to do great things, and he kept making mediocre movies that were like, they're bordering on okay to good. If someone came out and made Chappie like their first movie, it would have been heralded as like a visionary, like a new visionary. But because it made District 9 or whatever, like both Elysium and Chappie never got to those heights of social commentary, comedy, and all of it. Anyway, so I don't think Chappie's a bad movie. It's not a good movie necessarily, but it's not bad. It's closer to being good than it is to being bad, in my opinion. Anyway, so you got culture shock. You thought your friends online were going to put words to how you were feeling, and then you suddenly got this dissonance where you're like, I don't feel that way, and now they're ragging on the thing I like. So what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, and well, I just felt like those videos were, all of a sudden those videos were less fun to watch, because I'm like, well, they don't like the movie I like, and I kind of just stopped watching them.
That's interesting.
And I wonder if like that's kind of what a lot of people are going through, like with 40K, is like it doesn't feel like it used to. It's not scratching the itch it used to.
Right.
And so trying to put a face to that name.
I'm gonna needle down on what you just said, and we're gonna do a bit of an examination of your reaction to the critics not lining up with you. Okay, so hopefully this isn't too harsh, but surely when you come into watching a critic or listening to a critic discuss the things you like, they aren't always going to agree with your sentiments. And surely that's a good thing. Surely the conversation around it is what
For
you
sure.
want. Are you always looking for the agreement? I'm not saying you did do this, but it's just like a thought exercise in a way. Are you always looking for the agreement, or are you looking for the conversation around it?
Yeah, cool. Because I think I was a little bit looking for the agreements, because I was watching those. I wouldn't watch the film review to see if I should go see a movie. Usually I would only watch a film review of a movie I've already seen for the entertainment of hearing him say things about the movie that I've also seen. Yeah. And yeah. And so I wasn't engaging with it. I don't think movie reviewers on YouTube are really movie reviewers. I think it is an entertainment thing. But,
I guess like, so I don't always agree with Red Letter Media. I don't always agree with them, but I still watch some of their stuff, because I haven't got around to it yet, because I haven't seen Alien Romulus. But once I've seen Alien Romulus, I'm going to watch the Half in the Bag about it, and I'm probably going to disagree, because I think they are painfully cynical at this point. They've got more cynical over time, because I think it's what drives like their views a little bit. So I often like find myself rolling my eyes a little bit about how cynical they're being, but I still value some of their input and some of the things they say, and find it entertaining.
For sure. I still like all those YouTubers I mentioned, and I still watch them from time to time.
Oh, I'm hoping someone tags Red Letter Media in the description of this, and in the comments, and they see this, and then they never want to talk to you. But it's interesting, because I try to be like that a little bit, in the sense that I definitely have opinions in Warhammer and in Magic, but I just make more content about Magic, so I keep going back to that. But where I know what I'm about to say is not going to be the popular one. I did it for a long time. I was banging on the drum about Battle for Baldur's Gate being good, and people were like, this set sucks. I'm like, I don't think it does. Please listen and let me try and explain these things I like about it. And I wonder sometimes, and it definitely happens, people switch off. The retention is worse. Like, people click off, people comment shitty comments because they've seen the title and the thumb, and they listen to the first 2 minutes, and they're like, fuck you, I don't agree. And I'm just like, oh, but I wanted to try and like have a conversation about this. I'll talk about it from both perspectives, if you will. And that's actually a very hard thing to do in the YouTube space, because people are often looking for that agreement as opposed to a conversation, I guess.
Yeah, there's a really cute thing that happened recently on my channel where I made a video being like, I'm excited for Kill Team 3, because I genuinely am. I like Kill Team a lot. And then Vince on the same day, like almost at the same upload time, put out his video, which was almost a copy of my thumbnail. And his said, like, Kill Team disappointed. Or still disappointed. And like we had two like opposite takes. And then online people were like, depending on whose video they liked more, they were like, well, it's nice to hear from Vince because he's honest and Jay's a shill. Or then the next person who comment would be like, Vince is cynical and Jay is awesome. Like, it's hilarious how their reading of the videos, like
it's reductive as well in nature, right? Like we're getting to more talking about like being a critic or a content creator here, but I don't give a fuck. It's my podcast. We can do that if we want. I think it's reductive, and people are quite reductive. People really want to boil things down to simplicity, not like a human being with nuanced or multifaceted like feelings and opinions. It's more like you are either a cynical moany man, which is what I get a lot of from people, or I'm a fucking shill when I actually like something. Because like I've had videos about things I've liked in Magic recently. People are like, oh, Vincent's changed, President Kenobi's changed. He used to hate all this stuff like I do, and now he's having fun. I never hated it. I've never hated any of these things. So yeah, I think people want to reduce you down to your base elements because it makes it easier to consume in a way, right? It's yeah, it's a fucking weird old world making content on the internet, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, and I think I just said Vince, thinking Vince Venturella. It wasn't, it was Uncle Adam. It was Tabletop Minions.
When you said it, part of me did wonder. I remember seeing Minions thumbnail and like I wonder if he's talking about Uncle Adam there. Because Vince's thumbnails are always similar, the same thing that he puts out.
Vince Venturella wouldn't play Kill Team.
Yes, that was another thought I was thinking too. I was like,
yeah.
So you tangent Kill Team. I heard the rules are free. I heard they're going back to numbers. I was like, fuck yeah, let's try it again. I bounced off it hard with last edition. And then they were like, all the compendium teams are gone. And I was like, oh man, that's like half the shit that I've got. Because I only own one. Actually, I might own 0 like modern Kill Teams. Because all my stuff is built from 40k kits. I mean, that's not true. Yeah, I FOMO bought 2 of the box sets. So I do own the Commandos, the Krieg and shit. But yeah, the compendium teams getting taken away really killed my excitement.
Yeah, I mean, if you had kept up with Kill Team, most of the compendium teams had already fallen away,
and they were shit. I think
the only ones left were like Grey Knights. I think was it only Grey Knights and one other thing that was still kicking around. I mean, you could in theory play the old compendium teams, but
I played them.
They weren't even
when I played with the boys. The greenskins, which were like the non-commando orcs, and that was boys, Gretchen, you got a rocket launcher, and you got or flamer and stuff like that. So like they were available. Same with Custodes too. So I played Custodes and I played the greenskins, I think they were called, and they were compendium, right? And you could tell they were compendium because they were bare bones with like very minimal upgrades, and that was kind of boring too. So
yeah. The with each like balance data slate, they would say like. They would kind of just recommend by omission, like, don't play Compendium Crew. Don't play Talons of the Emperor. Don't play.
That's so sad, though. Like, I don't know.
It is.
Like, it means I thought I'd have a million options going to New Kill Team, and now I have 2. Because they've just, like, they love shit canning stuff right now. They just can't stop squatting. I
think Games Workshop makes it very easy to hate them.
Yes.
There's always something to be upset and mad about.
Yeah, and I guess that feeds the people like myself and you and you don't do the what the fuck have GW done now videos, right? You talk about those topics in your talk show head stuff, but your thumbnails and titles don't really point to those things as much.
No, I feel like Games Workshop hasn't done a bad one in a while. I guess they you know what they kind of have. They squatting half of the age of the Stormcast range. Losing like 4 like beloved units from the Blood Angels.
And the Blood Angels one was right off the back of them releasing kits that very many people, myself included, thought looked shocking too. So yeah, I don't know. They seem to be making quite a few stuff. I woke up to look at the previews this morning, and people on my Discord were joking about how bad they were. And I was like, they can't. People are I was doing what we're doing in this video. People are so quick to hate. They can't be that bad. And I looked at them and I was like, hang on a minute. Some of these roadmaps saying still to come, Chaos Dwarves and Slaves in Old World, like that's already happened. Like that stuff's what the fuck is going on?
Are we accidentally discovering that maybe the Chuds have a point?
Yeah, well, that's
not
the thing,
about that, but about being mad at Games Workshop.
The Chuds aren't normally getting upset about bad roadmaps or bad model releases.
About the normal
They're
thing.
normally upset about gay people or something. Like that's what I define as a Chud, is the people who are angry about diversity on Twitter and similar.
The people who are upset that there is a black guy on the cover of one of the Ultramarine novels.
Yeah, that was how I was introduced to Arch, by the way. Coming across a video of him discussing whether or not that could. It's like a 60-minute video whether or not that character could exist, and I was like, this is not good. This is not a good look.
Yeah, I remember because you discovered Arch that way. I actually honestly watched Arch. 'Cause
Really?
10 years ago, that if you looked up Warhammer lore, you would get Arch. But I remember stopping watching him because he would introduce like slurs and kind of nasty stuff into his lore breakdowns.
That's interesting because that's true on the Magic side of things too. So there's this YouTuber called The Quartering who is now a huge right-wing talking head. Like he makes hundreds of thousands of views per video and he just shits about, he's just like obsessed with Disney going woke. Like this is his thing. And he's basically, he's a charlatan. He doesn't believe half the shit he's saying. He's just reading off a script that some dickhead's written for him. But originally he was a Magic YouTuber, and he was like a very well-known and prominent Magic YouTuber who opened loads of product and talked about Magic. And it's only when he got banned from Magic tournaments for life for like basically borderline sexually harassing a woman online, a cosplayer. It's all fun and games until I said that big laugh. And I'm like, sorry, we're about to get dark. He's a fucking knob. But it's really funny because like the Quartering comes up with newer Magic players. They're like, oh, it'll come up and someone will mention the Magic thing, like, oh, he's been a Magic YouTuber. And like people find out the rabbit hole of how he used to be one of the like biggest 3 Magic YouTubers. And the funny thing is, getting banned from Magic events and going into the right ring manosphere shot him to stardom. He wasn't making that much bank in the Magic community, but now he's making silly bank being they cancelled me, Disney, wokeification, Karen, SJW stuff. Like, so I used to watch his stuff when he used to open boxes and things. I just have it in the background as he's opening a box as I was sorting my Magic cards. And then slowly you hear the stuff and you're like, hang on a minute. What was that about gun control? Excuse me? Like, it's just like weird shit they'll say, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird with 40K where it seems like you don't have to go that far to start to run into not scary stuff, but like upsetting stuff.
So you've got us back on track. So the Quartering is probably the best example of that in Magic. And it's a pretty severe example, but it's also an example of the parent company being like, nah, fuck you. You cannot come to events anymore. You're just banned, right? Similar to when Arch got his channel cease and desist, he had to remove Warhammer from his name, right? That was a thing that GW did. But outside of the Quartering, there are very few prominent Magic YouTubers or even prominent spaces or Magic Twitter accounts or anything where you will see people being just fucking chuds, like spewing vitriol and stuff. Because the community is, for better or worse, depending on who you ask, super left-leaning to the point of like being very, very conscientious of liberal and progressive ideas. What has happened is, all these people get banned from the spaces like Reddit and similar, and then all congregate in one subreddit called Free Magic, where they're all just openly and horribly transphobic and racist. And then they argue amongst themselves where it's meant to be a freedom of speech thing. So some of them don't even agree with what the other ones are saying. And it's just a terrible place. And every time I say something political, I'll show up in there as a SJW cuck, Pleasant Kenobi says, so on. So we've sort of pushed that to the fringe. Warhammer, on the other hand, the moment female Custodes were announced, which is not even that big of a progressive idea, and we had fucking huge meltdowns and just like so much shit on social media, and I was like, that wouldn't happen in Magic. Like there was things like Aragorn got shown to be black in the Lord of the Rings set. They made Aragorn black, and that was like the closest we got to it, and it did have some vitriol, but it had less vitriol than the female Custodes stuff. Why?
Yeah, interesting. I wonder, so with Magic, do most people who are part of like the Magic community, do most of them actually play the card game?
Yes.
Okay, because for 40K, not many people play the game. A lot of people collect the models, a lot of people read the novels, a lot of people play the video games, but it's definitely a smaller slice of the pie that actually engage with the game and see other Warhammer nerds face to face.
Oh, you think there's no, because they don't play the game, which is absolutely true, just for the people at home, I'm agreeing with Jay 100%. There's such a small fraction of people that actually are into Warhammer that play, and that's also completely legitimate and fine. If all you do is build and paint or listen to Black Library novels or read wikis, every way of that is valid of enjoying the hobby, until you start calling other people tourists. At that point, we can examine how much you interact with stuff, which we'll come to more in a moment, I guess. So you're saying because you don't play, it's less social. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. I think, if you don't play, it's less social, and then that leads to like more, because everyone I meet and play a game with is awesome. I've only had a couple games in my life against randos who I'm like, I don't want to play you again. But like then online, you get, argue with somebody on Facebook in a Warhammer like group, and it's so easy to do.
Yeah. So what do people refer to it as? They refer to it as like a 4chan or Reddit moment IRL, when you actually have a conversation with someone who's like, don't you just think Disney's got too woke? And you're like, hang on, you exist in the real world? Because a lot of these conversations don't really happen. Or when they do happen. So I was at a Magic event doing a meet and greet. There's an hour where I'm sat at a table and people come up and I sign shit and chat to them. And this guy sits down opposite me. It's a weird meet and greet. I'll shoot out the weirdness. One guy asked to take a picture with me and just took a picture of my feet and then walked off. In shoes, but sure. I think he was trying to be quirky.
He got what he needed.
Yeah, whatever. Another guy sat down, chatted to me for like bordering on 10 minutes, a big part of the slot. People are queuing. And then he's like, who are you? I actually know who you are. And I'm like, okay. I'm not offended by this. That's fine. You don't know who I am, but can you please just like fuck off and let the people who care? Like, you're just wasting everyone else's time by like sitting here and asking me a lot of questions. Very strange. Third one sits down, says he's a big fan, signs something. We start talking, and then he says, "Oh boy, those female Custodes though, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean? Have you watched the podcast episode I did with Mikey?" He's like, "No. How do you feel about it?" I'm like, "Well, I think it's pretty fine. I could either not care or I'm actually pretty cool with them making female Custodes. I think it's actually like a reasonable thing to have." And he's like, "Oh, but don't you think it's like a little bit like it's pandering and it's woke?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't." And we just got into this like spiraling thing. So you do get those interactions IRL. I couldn't believe that guy did it in a meet and greet in front of people. People were laughing in the line. People were rolling their eyes because people who don't even play Warhammer were like, if they're socially media active, saw the fringes of the conversation, right? Because it blew up. It blew up because all of the grifters from the manosphere and the right-wing side of like social media all came in. The Gums, the Quarterings all came in, did videos on Warhammer going woke. And all of it was just like regurgitating the same shit that Arch had said or something. Like none of it was actually adding anything to the conversation. So sometimes those conversations do happen IRL, but they are rare, I guess, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting. And also we saw like that big explosion with the female Custodes because that was really something good to sink your teeth into. But then they've tried to keep it going with like, Henry Cavill is the show. He and Amazon are fighting when really it's just one sentence out of the like. I actually read the thing.
Yes.
Those reports.
This is a family tree, Jay. It's a family tree, right? You've got female Custodes here. And you've got Rings of Power is woke here, okay? And then when those two have a baby, you've got Henry Cavill, Amazon Warhammer show, woke, outrage, gone mad, GW lied, epic meltdown, or whatever the title of the video for those people is, right? That's the baby there.
Yeah.
And now luckily, Rings of Power Season 2 is out today, as of recording, so half these fucking idiots will just go somewhere else and pollute a different fandom for a while, and maybe everyone will stop making AI-generated Henry Cavill slop thumbnails and just bullshit nonsense. So what are you saying about the one line of text? You mentioned one line in the article?
Yeah, in the earnings report from Games Workshop, it just says, like, we're in talks with Amazon and we have to do something by this date.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's just a statement saying they're at the email phase of this project. And people are taking that and extrapolating it to Henry Cavill, the gatekeeper of the Warhammer hobby, is fighting bare knuckle with woke Amazon.
Yeah. So there's this belief that Amazon are trying to poison Warhammer. We're getting away from why and if toxic, and now we're just going to talk about one of the intricacies of the toxicity, which I find just fucking fascinating. There's this weird underlying belief that Amazon of all people, for some reason, want to wokeify Games Workshop. But then at the same time, the same conspiracy theorists are saying that GW is being wokeified by like investment companies like BlackRock or whatever. That's why huge capitalist entities like BlackRock, they are the ones poisoning Games Workshop with diversity. So there's all this talk of that. And then Henry Cavill, for some reason, is the white knight upon the hill, right? Because I guess it's because like he was Superman in the Snyderverse. So all the people who like don't understand anything, like they can't process like literature or art. They're like, well, I thought the Snyder cut was the best thing to ever happen. Those people were like, well, Henry Cavill's always getting the short end of the stick, right? Because there's all this talk about him with The Witcher. Yeah, of him not getting on with them because he wanted to keep it law accurate. Oh, law accurate being like the most important thing in the world. Him getting kicked out of Superman. They always act like he's getting a raw deal from the big man. Henry Cavill is the big man. He's part of it all. What are you on about? Yeah. So yeah, Henry Cavill's being held up as the last bastion of like white male gaming. And it's like, what are you on about?
Just a little tangent about Henry Cavill, but I'm sure that does seem like he is genuinely a fan of 40K.
Oh, absolutely.
But I like to think, because he's Henry Cavill, he wanted to make a Warhammer show, so he just posts a picture of a Custode, posts a picture of some books, and just he's like guiding the world to get to make the show he wants. Like,
it's almost
I don't know
like,
if that's cynical, but I think he could do that, and it'd be like fun.
Yeah, like I believe he's a big fan. I do. But there's also elements of like he could have become a bigger fan as he like. Right, I'm not saying this is what happened, but this is the kind of thing that you're saying, right? He's read 1 or 2 heresy novels in the past and liked them, and he's painted a couple of Custodes, like a background thing. And then he just randomly listens to another novel or gets in a new kit or whatever. He's thinking, fucking hell, this is like an untapped well. All right, I'm more into it. He starts reading more, then he posts his picture. And like you said, he goes from like getting into his obsession to then being like, you know what, I want this because no one else is doing it. It can be like a smart career move in some ways. But yeah, absolutely.
Who knows?
I like, right. Cards on the table, I like Henry Cavill, right? I think I think the Superman movies that he were in were a bad rep. They're not as bad as people say. But Snyder is not a good director. He's a bad writer. That's a fucking fact, right? But Henry Cavill was a perfectly reasonable Clark Kent and quite a good Superman, okay? Physicality and acting-wise, and he showed range in those movies too. I don't give a shit about The Witcher, and I love Warhammer. I don't dislike Henry Cavill. What I will say is I'm fucking sick and tired of Henry Cavill. I'm so fucking tired of like thumbnails of Henry Cavill about Warhammer. I've done it before. I did a video where it was him. I did his reloading his arms thing that he did for Mission Impossible. I did a compilation of him doing that, but he was shaking 2 pots of Null oil. That was like a video that I made because I was trying to get people to watch. I thought it was funny. And also at some point he said Warhammer is my jam. I clipped it out and did like a video that looks like a Chapter Master Valrak video where it's like a minute of him talking about Warhammer that Valrak uploads with like no added commentary. It was that, but it was Henry Cavill saying the word jam. And the thumbnail was Henry Cavill's head in a jar of jam. I've done this stuff too, okay? But it's time we stop. It's time to stop milking Henry Cavill, unless you're really into that sort of thing, and it should be consensual. But I'm so fucking tired, and it happens everywhere else as well. Like superhero fiction, everything about the new Superman movie. People are like, well, Henry Cavill was better. And it's just like, fucking shut up about Henry Cavill. I'm so fucking tired of the man. Is that fair to say, or am I being too harsh?
I think that's fair. Also, the show might happen in a few years. I have no room to get excited for it.
It's almost like people expected him to rock up in Space Marine armor the moment it was announced. And to be fair, I think they announced it too early. It was probably a pressure to try and get some like good earnings call data for the earnings call. Like, stock prices go up, Henry Cavill involved, TV show, Amazon. But in reality, they announced it so fucking early to the point that they seemingly didn't decide on what they were going to adapt. And I still don't know if they have. Did they mention Eisenhorn?
I don't think so.
Has Eisenhorn been mentioned now? Am I imagining that?
I don't think I think literally the only thing known is like literally like Amazon and Games Workshop are communicating about what the direction. So literally, I think they have nothing.
No, you've missed a key point, a key bit of factual information that Henry Cavill is arguing constantly with Amazon and Games Workshop, who want to fill it full of women. They want to fill it full of women, and he's like, no, law accurate, no women. You've missed that. Because that was a lot. So to mention Arch for a third time, and hopefully a last time, because I can see his face and it makes me want to puke. He was saying something along the lines of the show may happen, it may not happen, or it may be delayed. He basically just threw out the 3 possibilities as like insider information. And then every fucking man and his dog made a video off the back of that in that sort of like sphere. And that leaked out into like real world publications. Like I'm pretty sure like the New York Times or fucking something like that did an article saying the show might be in trouble. It may not be happening. It may be happening. I'm like, are we just reporting like fucking conjecture, complete and utter like, what is going on? So that was another thing. There's so little information. And the information you think you've got is just lies and fabrications by fucking weird YouTubers.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the chuddiness of Warhammer,
sure.
I think one of the reasons that
Warhammer...
That is
part of the chuddiness, though. That is part of the chuddiness. This sort of thing doesn't happen in other spheres. It's always video games and Warhammer. Magic doesn't have this problem. No one's making up lies about the Magic the Gathering TV show that doesn't exist anymore. Just saying.
Yeah, I think it's the weird abstractness of 40K. Like I've got my rule book right here because I was rereading the page 1 to recenter myself in like what Warhammer is. And the page you've read, of course, you're familiar with the page 1 of Warhammer. It goes hard.
It does.
It's the corpse lord is the carrion lord of the empire. Like that is so fun and mysterious and grim. But then you start to read the novels and it's like, okay, well, these novels are kind of, your average sci-fi fare. And then you read like the Warcom articles and it's written in that cutesy language. And so it's like I feel like everybody has their own interpretation of what Warhammer is. And Games Workshop smartly made it so that everyone is right. But that also means that everyone is wrong.
Yeah, and I think the whole like Corpse Emperor, mankind's a bloated mess, satirical stuff, like they reiterate that at the moment as well with one of the articles about like Warhammer is for everyone. They mentioned that like this is meant to be satire, but I'm not quite sure if the way they present it both in like novel canon form where like everyone's so super heroic and shit, and like you said, the Warcom articles and the website and stuff, and like the way they give all the like they're flavoring a lot of the Space Marine stuff to be like kid friendly as well. Like here's the superhero hero men. It's like these men are meant to be fucking war criminals on like voids and drugs, but we've moved away from that. I think they've kind of sanded the edges off the satire to the point that it's hard to distinguish. If you were to feel around, you're like, are we sure this is satire? Or is this something weirdly self-aggrandizing like justification for mass genocide? Because in that circumstance, maybe you'd have to do that if like people could spawn demons out of their tits and stuff. Like I don't think the satire is really working. And that might be another reason why people gravitate towards the super fashy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, 40K is so not, like, people want it to be rigid, but it's not rigid. Like, people like Dune, they don't like what his kid did with the success, like, the other novels, but Dune is done. It's those books, there's nothing else. There's the Frank Darabont movie, like, that's it. But 40K is comic books and the board game and the video games and the tabletop game and the novels
and they conflict as well, right?
Novels.
It's not a perfect fit of a jigsaw. There's confliction in how they work. Like even the time frames of Warhammer, like 40K's canon and stuff, is all over the fucking place. Like it's not like you mentioned Dune. Dune is hard sci-fi with a solid timeline. And in many ways, old Warhammer fantasy was like that too, where there was just like, there's a map, there are places, these things happened, full stop. And then what they do with like Age of Sigmar and 40K is like, well, the universe is so vast and weird. There can be holes that are like time travel holes back to the past, and who gives a fuck? Just paint your things however you want. And that's kind of like what they always wanted to do. And then that plus the layers of canon now means that it's like, it's not this hard, crunchy, codified, set in stone thing. It's a very influx, gooey, wooey, not great satire.
Yeah. And I think that openness leads to, because like whenever I talk about the lore, I'm always wrong. Like people will say, "Oh, that was a fun thing you mentioned about the lore," and then other people will be like, "That's incorrect," and they're right because their source they're citing they're correct, but then I'm right because the source I'm citing I'm right, and so it's just impossible. It's impossible to be 100% right.
And the thing is, so for people who are a little bit less like familiar or been playing for as long as Jay has, or played as a kid like I did and stuff, like to explain something about 40K that people might have missed and we haven't covered in this video, is that it was always meant to be that way. Like there was meant to be conflicting accounts of events. It was meant to be like, there are mythical heroes of legend within the setting who it's not quite clear how real what they can do. Like it used to be up in the air, like how powerful the Emperor was and how powerful he was now that he's a rotting corpse on a chair. Like John Blanche has gone on record as saying the famous Golden Throne image, like the beloved John Blanche skeleton man on throne, is meant to be like a simulacrum. It's meant to be like what they just put there for people to come in and talk to, and the Emperor's deeper in there than that. And all these sort of things where like it's layers of obfuscation and bureaucracy and conflicting information. But then you get to this point now where there's a lot of people engaging with it as a property and as a fandom who want hard, crunchy, I want to argue what is correct and what is right using like sources on our wiki page and these articles on Reddit or whatever. You know, the power scaling battles, who'd win in a fight, Angron or the left tit of an Imperious Titan or whatever. And in reality, it should be more the former, where there's just a lot of debate and discussion, because that's how these branching huge canons work, especially Warhammers. But people want to claim that the canon is hard set. And the moment you say, well, female custodians have always been there, you've fucked it. You've ruined the sanctity of the property. And that's just not fucking true.
Yeah. To get back to what I said earlier about, like, I want everyone to be having as much fun as I am. I do think it is harder to engage with these when you've got like all of these different things knocking around in your head about like what Warcom article said or that Arch thumbnail you saw the other day. But I think you can dig into the Warhammer world and just kind of role play in it.
Sure,
like for me, my army is Black Templar, and the lore of my Black Templar is my Crusade fleet was floating around space, and they came to an orc planet, which is Nyx orcs, and then they landed, and for hundreds and hundreds of years, they have been warring against these orcs. And one day, they'll win, they'll wipe all the orcs off the planet, get back into their spaceship and fly off, having accomplished nothing. That's a perfect 40K story to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, war is pointless. And, I say pointless. The wars of the Imperium and the wars of the future are pointless. But yeah, you should get to do that sort of stuff. You should get to build your own headcanon. And then it's it's almost as important as the real canon in many ways. Like, people get too stuck up on what happened exactly when and shit. Like, the hard codification not allowing fixes or changes to retcons, right? Like, people were only upset about a certain one because of the certain talking points online that have like drilled into them that this is bad because it's meant to be for diversity. But like the Rogel Dawn battle tank showing up was to like, the only upset was that there was no flaw to the kit because they like left that bit out of the sprue. But no one gave a shit that like a tank named after a Primarch that's bigger than a Lehman Russ has just been there. It's always been there. There's not a new STC. It's just always been there. And that's fine. That's how they introduce new toys. If they don't do that, they have to do the Primaris shit. And let's be honest, the way they introduce Primaris is not a fun or satisfying canonical thing, is it? But like, Call is like, oh, I found this old data bank. Guess everything's stronger and more powerful now. Like, bollocks.
The only one defense I can give Primaris is I read the novel Apocalypse. Have you?
No.
It was just like a random one. But that one it was kind of a fun story because it features a Primaris captain, and he is kind of interacting in a world of like he's almost like a fish out of water. And so like there's a moment where they've lost one battle, and the Sister of Battle Canoness is berating him, being like, "You're an idiot. How could you not have?" And the Chaos Space Marines literally crashed their ship into the planet. And he's like, "How could I have accounted for them crashing their own ship?" And she's like, "That's what I would have done." And then he takes a moment and he's like, "That is what you would have done." And he's like kind of learning the world of 40K, and it's kind of a fun way.
He's a baby, is he? He's like a
well, because he was put in stasis back in the 30K days, and he's been woken up, and so now he's experiencing the 41st millennia for the first time.
Yeah. So is that when you said the ship crashing? Is that the Blackstone Fortress in Decadia?
No, it's just a random ass like war that doesn't matter about people who don't matter. Like,
yeah, that's
it's a very self-contained novel.
I love those ideas. Like the same with during that Decadia fall thing. Who's the one who collects shit for Necrons? Who's that?
That is.
It's not Trazyn. It's
Trazyn the Infinite.
Oh, it is Trazyn the Infinite. Okay. So he collects shit, right? And in that, he like brings a small company of like heresy era Marines out of stasis to help during the battle against Abaddon. And I think Greyfax is in his. I haven't read it, but I've only read the wiki stuff about it. But he basically brings a few toys out of stasis to help with the battle. And then when the battle's not going very well, I think he just nopes out. He's like, "All right, I tried. See you later." Disappears. But anyway, I love that shit. The idea that like, what would heresy Marines think of the current Imperium? And they do that with Guilliman as well, actually, which leads into back to a point for the main video topic. But Guilliman, when he shows back up, is like, they play him to be like the good boy. So he shows up as like, "Oh, the Imperium has fell so far, I need to fix it." Which is a problem because this is a point I've probably said in this podcast a couple times already. During the heresy, he's the just following orders guy who like genocides a planet. And when Lorgar gets upset with him, he's like, "Just doing what Dad said, bro." And it's like, you fucking Nazi. That makes you a Nazi. Anyway, so that's part of the, going back to what we're talking about, like, why do weird fashy people get really hell-bent on defending the law coming in? Like, GW are pretty bad at keeping the satire going when they bring back one of the Nazi men from the heresy, and then be like, "Don't worry though, he's a heroic paragon of the golden days when we were crusading across the skies and killing anyone who didn't agree with us." Like, it's really fucked as a satire. Like, I love it. I love a lot of it, and you're allowed to enjoy it. People at home are thinking I'm just ragging on it. I'm not. I'm listening to No Fear at the moment. I enjoy the heresy novels, but there is inherent flaws to some of it. The depictions of certain cultures, or like the weird, they can't figure out whether they want to point out that the Marines are actually like sociopaths, killers, or whether they're heroic paragons of like what mankind should be. They can't really decide.
Yeah. I mean, Games Workshop can't even decide if Space Marines are pretty or horrifying. Like the Blood Angels, some of the art in the Blood Angels Codex has them be like angelic figures, but then the artwork from Space Hulk, which is also Blood Angels, they're just like Hellraiser monsters under their helmets.
Well, I guess
like we've always got these two things.
I get like we said earlier, it's also malleable, and it's also like a setting in which you're meant to tell stories. Like Vince was on the last episode, Vince Venturella, and he's saying how you can't tell interesting stories and it's all set in amber. I'm like, I don't necessarily agree, because of like we're saying here, one moment the Blood Angels are like, these like supernaturally beautiful, bordering on vampiric. Well, they are vampiric, but that sort of thing. You know, the vampire depiction in a lot of media is that they're so pretty, it's kind of unnerving, right? But on the flip side, sometimes Marines are depicted and Blood Angels are depicted as being just 400-year-old, scarred, cauliflower-eared, like a boxer who never died. Because we never get to see what boxers look like at the age of 200, right? Because they're dead by 50. Yeah. Like, just imagine if they'd gone toe-to-toe with aliens for 400 years. There'd be a garbled, mangled cauliflower of a person. And those two things can both exist at the same time. I guess the thing that I criticise from GW is not that they have different stories and different depictions of different things. It's that these are all quite inconsistent in how you want your satire to look. Because you can keep saying it's satire. They said it in an article like this year when they regurgitated it's for everyone. And it is sometimes satirical, but a lot of the time it's not. A lot of the time it's very hard to point to how the characters are depicted in a heresy novel and be like, are you sure these apparatus of power for a fascist nation, are you sure they're not being depicted as the good guys here? Because it feels like they're the good guys here. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's 40K is a hot mess.
Yes,
and the hot part is what we love about it, and the mess is what we also love about it.
Yeah, it's cool to be a hot mess and stuff. I just think, if you want to keep banging that drum, you should commit to the bit a bit more. I guess that's what I'm saying, is just commit to the bit that the Imperium is fucking terrible more often. I just want more of a terrible Imperium, I guess. So
very often,
we have gone about the houses, and we've not even covered half the stuff we wrote down in our notes about this. And I feel like we can keep going, but I'm like, this podcast episode has to end soon. I'm thinking, this is staying in the episode, by the way. I'm just trying to figure out how we meander.
Perfect.
There's no solution to this, I guess. I
don't know if there's a solution. What I wanted was just to help people maybe away from the chuddiness back into the having fun with Warhammer.
Okay, that's a great point we can move towards as an ending that I thought about earlier, but because people tell me I cut people off too much, and I'm consciously not trying to, but earlier on I had a point I wanted to say. I was giving you time, and then by the time we moved on to something else, I forgot. Helping people to enjoy themselves and move away from the chud side. So I do think, as creators and online influencers and people who have a platform and people who have a space that other people can come and get involved in, Discord servers, comment sections and similar, we kind of have a responsibility to try and help people who might be teetering on that edge. The people who might fall into the quartering Sargon or whatever and be like, yeah, they're right. Disney are a bunch of evil people. And I wonder why that's happening. I wonder if, I want to help those people see a different perspective. And I think if we go back to the original point, or one of the original points, my Women Space Marines video, the very first one, was so antagonistic and to an extent smug about my position that I alienated all those people. Those people that I thought I could maybe lure in and have a conversation about this and to see a different perspective, they were like, fuck this guy, he's called me a fucking idiot. And they just switched off, noped out, and unsubscribed. And I think that's something that I want to move my position towards. Chud Watch is fun and everything, but I don't know if Chud Watch as a concept is conductive towards that outcome. Right? There's people who have stopped watching by now because I've been slagging off YouTubers that they like. So maybe I'm coming to a realization an hour and a half in. I'm like, maybe, is this the right way to go about it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say for anybody who's a little bit down the rabbit hole of you're watching Arch because that was entertaining and fun for a little bit, but maybe it's not anymore. Like 40K is fun. Once again, reread the first page. It goes really hard. And then take that and use it on your minis, use it in your games.
Read the first 3 Horus Heresy books too. 3.
Yeah, they're excellent.
There's loads of other ones too, but the first 3 are so fucking good. It'll make you want to collect Heresy. That's the problem. It makes me want to, because I've got some Heresy stuff, and I'm like, oh, I just need to focus on my AOS and my 40k. But when I'm listening to a Heresy novel, I'm like, oh, maybe I could build some more Marines. But yeah, 40k is great and it is fun. One female Custodes here and there. One little fucking bone to the idea of diversity or giving people representation in some capacity is not going to kill any of those things.
Also, we haven't even said what our thought on the female Custodes are. Everyone.
I think I asked you. I asked you the question an hour and 20 minutes ago, and then we've just like fucking missed it. Yeah, like a GW roadmap. We're like, yeah, that'll be here sometime in 2025.
Yeah, I think female Custodes makes a lot of sense because Custodes are a different thing than Space Marines, but everyone just thinks they're golden Space Marines. I think having men and women makes them a little bit more unique, so I think it's a good change. I do think that we're seemingly not getting any female Space Marine models or any female Custodes novels, so kind of a wet fart of a change, but
they should have because I don't believe they had to codify it in a novel. I think just like having it in an excerpt, for people who are tuning into this for the first time and you've somehow made it to an hour and 20 and we haven't actually clarified the original opening point. It's kind of because we've both done it already, right? You've done a video on it, I did an episode on it and stuff. But they did one story excerpt involving a female custodian and that was what kicked everything off. Everyone was like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? But I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to change it and everything, because that's what happens all the time. Makari in the Orc Codex last edition, it got revealed that he's like a goblin that gets replaced. He's not actually as lucky or indestructible as we thought, but they don't tell Gaz. And again, that was in a little square box. It's just a beautiful bit of lore addition. They build on the world and these things all the time. The Heresy itself was a fucking square box in like it's even Rogue Trader. It's definitely in Rogue Trader than it was in the Space Marine box, the original Epic, right? It's fine to do that stuff. I do agree, though, they could have made it a bigger symbolic gesture by actually doing, they did a Sisters of Battle, like Black Library, she stood on a rock, she's got a flame flame at least. What if in that slot they'd had a female custodian, the shield captain from that story, helmet off, heroic pose.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, but then I think that would have made it worse in some ways.
Probably.
Like, we would have preferred it, but the Chuds would have hated it, dude. The Chuds would have been mad.
Yeah, but maybe it would have been better because it would have been a stronger flag plant as opposed to just almost sneakily
it could
putting
have been,
in a lady
it could
and
have
then
been
just
ignored.
walking away from it.
It could have been missed almost. If it wasn't for the fact that people got so upset about it, it would have probably been missed. Like the Makari thing is just mentioned in passing by like super nerds. That's kind of what the female custodian thing would have been if it weren't for the fact that the other side of things, the Chud side of things, were like doing reaction clips and screaming and fucking getting really upset about it, which is super interesting. Yeah, so they could have done more, but I'm also absolutely fine with what they did. Also, like, I don't think we need canonical female Space Marines for the record. Like, I like the idea that people can make them if they want to and such. And I also think that in some ways, giving us female custodians actually makes them... It gives us a point to compare the Marines to. I like the fact that the Marines could be hyper macho, like toxic masculinity turned up in a sense. Like, it should be a parody of those things. Like, brother, we don't know how to function in normal society, and we speak to female guardsmen, we just seem fucking weird. Like, that stuff would be all cool. But that's not how they're shown. They're shown to be like heroic paragons and shit. They should have the word death tattooed on their forehead, and they should be snorting like crushed up space fox before they go into battle. And then the custodians can be much better adjusted, just supermen and women being like, what the fuck are these guys doing? That'd be much better.
Yeah. I think Space Marines being men works really well because the Custodes are like the fishing buddy of the Emperor, and the Space Marines are like the weird stepson of the Emperor.
Well, the Custodes were always designed to work. Right, that's an interesting point, right?
Yeah.
The Custodes were always meant to exist and work and potentially, like they killed the Fire Warriors, right? They were a tool that was meant to work. Where Fire Warriors, the precursor to the Marines, and the Marines themselves have always been designed to fail to an extent, right? There's always this through-line argument that the Emperor set up the Primarch Project and the Marines to be a thing that he could eventually kill itself or be killed and then be rid of it because they're fucking maniacs. They are like killing machines through and through, right? So I kind of like the idea that they're so imperfect that they are built around the worst traits of masculinity in some ways. And that like when you get to the actual super soldiers, the ones that were designed to work and function as both poets and orators and leaders and warriors, the Custodes, they are men and women because that's how human society does function. Meanwhile, the bastardized version of that, the one that was meant to self-destruct, is a load of psycho dickhead men. That's absolutely a cool contrast. Again, though, we are putting a lot onto that because that's not quite how GW frames it.
Yeah.
Have you ever read a novel that had the Minotaurs in it?
No.
So they show up in like...
That was like the Forge World chapter, right?
Yeah, they were Forge World chapter. I think they were big in the Badab Wars and shit, but like in the Emperor of the Throne novels, which are based around when the Custodes get asked to leave Earth for the first time, it was like the canonical explanation for why they became a 40k faction. In that, in one of the two of them, the Minotaurs show up to Earth and are doing something dodgy for like, they're being hired by one of the Lords of Terror to do something that the rest of the Lords of Terror don't want to happen. And they are portrayed and discussed as just fucking horrible, horrible people. Like the Salamanders or the Imperial Fists that are in the book are like, yeah, we don't fuck with these guys. Like, we don't like them, we don't vibe with them, we don't want to go on a mission with them. And at one point they have to fight them, I think, or the Custodes fight them. It's been a while since I read it. But the way the Minotaurs are made up to be secretive, conniving, shitty, violent, and like unpredictable, I'm like, that's how the Marines should be in general. But then the Salamanders and the Imperial Fists are like, no, we're lovely paragons. You're like, no, you fucking shouldn't be. But maybe that's a whole other video where we go on about the Space Marine problem and how we think they should be handled.
That would be another great topic.
There you go.
I love
that'd be the next one. We're doing Marines an hour and a half.
I have almost 14,000 points of Black Templar.
Yeah, I own, I think it's 15,000 painted, and then I've got like 20,000 like Blood Angels. I went fucking apeshit during the pandemic. I bought so many Marines, and now I don't know what to do with them all because they keep getting squatted. It's really frustrating.
I remember back when you were still uploading on your Pleasant Kenobi channel, I remember you like, one of your first videos showing off, like, you're getting back into 40k, and you're like, yeah, I sold one of my Magic decks, and I bought this. And then it's a folding table, 100% covered in models.
Yeah. Like, because I sold some lands that were like $230 each, and I had like 3 of them sold. So that was immediately like over almost $800 worth of models I bought off of 3 lands, because Magic can sometimes be insane like that. But I need to sell some Warhammer and make some space. I haven't got any space for my AOS armies. That's the problem. And I'm boxing up Marine stuff to stick in the attic. I'm like, I find it hard to part with it, because especially when you painted it, right? It's really hard to part with stuff you painted with, which again is another topic for another video, I guess. So to round out, to go back to the original topic and just like close out, I do want to try and help people who are veering off into the doom spiral. And social media promotes doom spirals, right? I want to help those people. I do think Warhammer does have a toxic fan base problem. I don't think it's so severe. Problem's a weird word, right? Like, there is a problem, but it's a relatively minor problem. I do think on the whole, the Warhammer community is pretty good. My local community is very good. I've never been called a slur by anyone at a gaming event, which is nice. So it's not so bad.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a weird thing that you do run into with 40k. And it'd be nice if you didn't, but well.
Yeah, and it's getting better. That's a great point to end on. Here you go. Here's your positivity, you fucks. The ones who say I'm always moaning for an hour and a half in these things. It is getting better. GW acknowledged it and reacted to it on several occasions. And I guess my feed is filled with less of it. The Henry Cavill thing, I guess you said it right. It was people trying to keep the hype alive from, what was the first talking point? It was the
it was
female Custodes through to Cavill. Yeah, exactly. And that will die down eventually. Although I'm scared because of Amazon TV show and Space Marine 2, there's a lot of algorithmic weight to continue to talk about how GW is woke. So
it's true. But the tiny snippet we saw from the animated trailer looked pretty good.
Animated trailer for
the Amazon Prime show.
Oh,
there's a There's like an anthology show about video games. And
Yeah.
one of the segments is going to be 40K,
That's
specifically Space Marine 2.
Yeah. So there's that episode looks great, and I'm excited for it. It's in December. There's an interesting point to that where, like, at the bottom of the article announcing the collaboration for that, they said this is not the Cavill show thing. I didn't mention Cavill, but they said it's not the Amazon show. That's coming later. But the interesting point is that if they had a clause where they had to create stuff in the meantime to keep the license alive or whatever, because one of the ethereal point that no one really understands or has the full details on, but there's a possibility that it was only like a year-long contract and they had to get something out. One episode of this would fit that caveat of having something come out on the Amazon Prime platform. So we might see small tidbits of shorts and singular things over the next couple of years until whatever the live action thing ends up looking like. Which is, again, a whole episode we could do conjecture on what... Because I think live action, just do Horus Heresy. Like, I know that's... I don't think marine, expensive bolter porn is necessarily the right way to go, but I think it's a way that will get a lot of people into it, right? A lot of people will be very excited to see, like, Gavril Loken and the Lupercal and Horus and...
Yeah. I'm very skeptical of live action for Warhammer, because, like... Warhammer is so big and so expansive, and Space Marines are so unrealistic. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe it can be done, especially done on a Amazon TV budget. Like, but animation, you can do anything. You can have the craziest stuff happen. Not everyone likes animation. Like the live action is more popular, but I don't know if it can be done.
But like, so this is a whole other topic. We'll talk about it quickly. Rings of Power had like what was its budget? Was it like 6 million an episode, or was it 60 million an episode? Rings of Power was the most expensive TV show of all time, right? On Amazon's money. And there's arguments it didn't make the money. All the YouTubers screaming about it being woke and stuff will tell you it didn't. But I thought Rings of Power was a pretty good show. Maybe for that budget, it should be better than pretty good. Maybe it should be exceptional. But like, with that kind of budget, they could do it. And you mentioned animation works. Like, most of the stuff where the Marines are wearing helmets won't actually be live action, right? If they did a Marine thing with the proper Marine bolter port of Marines fighting... It would
be computer generated.
Yeah. And then occasionally helmets come off. It's some actors talking in a room. Like, you want a Game of Thrones-y Horus Heresy sort of thing is what you really want, with each episode being an hour long, and there's a 10-minute or 15-minute segment of just like fucking balls to the wall things blowing up for a little bit, and then back to like Horus whispering in people's ears and shit. I
don't know if I would like that either. Honestly, what's the show that Games Workshop made on their crappy streaming service? Warhammer Visions or Warhammer... There's these little...
There's a few, isn't there? Yeah.
They have these little episodes, and they're each self-contained little stories in universe. I love those.
Okay.
Because they, like, you just get a little, like 10 to 20 minute movie about some weird little aspect of 40K, and I feel like that really gets the creative juices and the ideas turning.
So you want an anthology show?
Narrative. I love anthology, yeah. But anthology is also not very popular, so they shouldn't do that either.
I think it... So... I'm on the heresy train because I want that. But regardless of what they do, it needs to be in some way, it has to have a through line of characters, and it has to have those story points. It has to be like The Boys or Game of Thrones, in the sense of having things that moments people will talk about, right? You need betrayals and extreme shit, and you can have all that, right? Like, they need that. So anthologies, as much as I would personally love the idea of an anthology show, because we get to see more stuff. We have one episode about a hive world, one episode on Necromunda, for example. One episode is Gorka Morka or whatever. Or like a lone Imperial Guardsman lands on an orc planet where orcs are fighting, and he's just like, fuck. You could do all sorts of like weird shit. You could do like astropaths, like a day in the life of an astropath, or a demonic incursion on a ship, and do all these different shit. Wonderful. That's what I would love to see. In reality, that's not going to get people to talk around the virtual water cooler, is it? You need I need drama and gravitas, right? It needs to be like Game of Thrones is at its best when it's being interpersonal drama. Like, as much as people want dragons and big fights and shit, really it's the interpersonal drama, and we need an element of that. So we need subterfuge and the High Lords of Terror fucking each other over, or the Primarchs bitching and moaning and arguing, or whatever they end up doing, right? We need that.
Yep.
Finishing it then.
We could go for 8 hours.
yeah. We're gonna have like fucking 40 hours of this. Okay, they're an anthology show. Give me one episode that you want to see a certain facet of the 40K universe. What do you want to see?
All right, it's the animation style is kind of simple and a little bit storybook, and it is the story of the war in heaven. The Necrotyr killing their gods, but getting cursed with immortality from the Catan.
Yes. Okay.
And then the Silent King exiling. The Silent King coming back to 40K. I hate it. I hate it so much. The War in Heaven is such a beautiful story, and then him exiling himself because he doomed his species. But then he shows back up because he's like, I saw some Tyranid around the corner, so I guess I'll come back.
Yeah. No, I think they keep bringing back the truly mythical characters that they don't need to. Primarchs, the Silent King. Like, the idea that on a long enough timeline we'll end up with a fucking Emperor model, both in Heresy and maybe even 40K, I hate the idea of. I like him being, like, a really ethereal character we don't quite understand the true motivations or power level of. And they're like, we're just going to fully and utterly flesh him out and make him, fuck that. So I'm with you on that. The Silent King, the Emperor, the Primarchs.
It should have been Imhotep the Stormlord is the big, amazing Primarchish like character. Yeah. It shouldn't have been the literal, like, fairy tale god of the Necrons coming back.
Yeah. The model was great, but it should have just been Imhotep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the war... because you could also do with the War in Heaven thing, you could do it as being told by a child, an adult to a child sort of thing, like a framing device. Because you don't want to depict the actual War in Heaven itself because it's too big and too rambunctious and too...
It's too big.
Yeah, and too like mythical in a way. So you need to be told as a story,
it's the entire galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's why I think like maybe a simpler art, something a little bit more abstract with like voiceover, maybe with like a cool Egyptian accent.
Yeah, and you could have it like cave paintings at first. Like it could be a Necrotyr, like a noble talking to a cryptomancer or something like that and explaining it like as they go through the cave paintings and he brings up things on the hologlyph, and you could just do it like this, you could do it like a...
Yeah. Oh, maybe you even see like the fire casting a silhouette of two like Necrotyr talking or something. And then you get like the vague silhouette because nobody knows what they've ever looked like. The only thing we know about the Necrons is their new metal bodies, and that might not be anything about what they looked like before. Yeah.
So you don't want to you don't want to hard codify this stuff as well because you don't need to. Yeah. I like it. I was just going to go for something really boring, like the life cycle of a gene stealer. So like it's like
that'll be good one too.
We're talking like it's like there's no A plot dialogue. It's like fluids and liquids, egg, sac, growth, it crawling around the back like alleys of a hive world or a ship, it killing someone, infecting the gene pool, and it could all culminate to like a revolution on a planet, and then the planet being eaten, and that's like something like that, just shit like that because we haven't seen that stuff. We're aware of it, but we haven't seen it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, okay, yeah. We gotta stop.
Let's do a hard stop here. Next episode, we're either going to talk for an hour and a half about what we'd like to see in an anthology show, or maybe we'll do the whole what we should do with Space Marines. Who knows? This wasn't as focused. I thought it was going to be laser focused because we'd made notes. And then I just started shouting about Henry Cavill. And then, Jay, if people want to find you, I'll put links in the description below, but elevator pitch one line, where can they find you? What do you do?
Eonsbattle.com. We have a website. You can find our terrain. We make custom terrain, and you can find everything about us there. We also make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Warhammer and all things hobby related. And that's it.
Perfect. And I'm Vince, also known as Peasant Kenobi on the internet. I make magic content over on the Peasant Kenobi channel. This is PK's War Room, where I do sporadic Warhammer stuff and this podcast. So you should like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. If you can hear my dogs going off, that's because my wife's back with my baby, so I get to go have some family time now. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Ta-ta for now.
Bye-bye.